Madam Chair, it is 10 o'clock and we are ready to proceed if you are. Are we streaming yet? Okay, yes, we are streaming.
Good morning and welcome to the February 13th meeting of the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. My name is Mayor Pat Bates, Chairperson of the LCB, and I'll be chairing the meeting today. I'd like to ask Ms. Marilyn Baldwin to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Ms. Baldwin, and thank you to everyone who's joined us for today's meeting. The Metro Plan Orlando Board met yesterday, and one of their action items was the appointment of the elected officials to the TDLCB. I, along with Orange County Commissioner Myra Uribe, were reappointed, and joining us today is the new representative from Osceola County, Kissimmee Mayor Jackie Espinoza.
And Mayor, she has not arrived as of yet, so we will welcome her.
I'll welcome her when she gets here. Her appointment just happened yesterday, so surprise. I know staff, if they haven't already, will be scheduling a new member orientation for her. And obviously she does not want to address us yet, so we will skip that. Next, I will call on Mr. Wayne Olson for the report from the Quality Assurance Task Force meeting. Mr. Olson.
Thank you very much. The CANF meeting was January 28th, 2025. We had 4 action items on our agenda. Our 2025 CADF officer elections were held. With your approval today, I will serve as the 2025 chairperson, and Ms. Marilyn Baldwin will be the vice chairperson. We reviewed the TDLCB bylaws. There were no necessary changes, and therefore we recommend approval. We also reviewed the TDLCB grievance procedures with no changes being recommended. We recommended the subcommittee members of the Quality Assurance Task Force and the Grievance Committee. We had 2 presentations, an overview of the Health Services Transportation Plan and a Links Community Transportation Coordinator update. Our next meeting is April 29th, 2025. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Are there any questions? If not, let's move to agenda review and announcements. Ms. Whittington.
All right, good morning, Madam Chair and members. As you just noted, Mayor Jackie Espinoza was appointed to be the 3rd elected official on the TDLCB. And I was told by Lisa that she is requested to join us virtually. She has not joined yet, but as soon as she does, we will let you all know that she has arrived. I also want to welcome Ms. Tashara Cooper, who is our newly added. She is going to be the replacement for Ms. Charlotte Campbell. So she's the alternate, at-large alternate, and Tashara is seated to my right. So welcome, Tashara. Hi. That's awesome. I don't know too many members that get a hand clap. But welcome. Members, the TDLCB, your rider survey is currently open for input from the riders. As of yesterday, we had received 98 responses, and this morning we added another one, so we have 100 responses. It's set to close tomorrow, and so we are far ahead of where we were this time last year. And as you will remember from last year, you all directed us to extend that the survey because we were not getting the responses that we had expected. And so we're just very happy to be ahead of where we were last year. And so that is part one of your responsibility as the LCB in the evaluation of the community transportation coordinator. The second part is your community transportation coordinator evaluation instrument that you will receive immediately following this meeting. You'll receive an email that will have a link that goes directly to the electronic version, and attached to that email is a hard copy that you can use. You can print it out and fill it in. There's some specific areas on the back side or the bottom of that evaluation that you would use if you have any input on recommendations for additional things that the access links might be able to do. So improvements, if you will. We only need one version. We only need either the electronic version, or if you choose to submit the hard copy, one or the other, not both. And Madam Chair, we are prepared to move forward with the agenda as it is printed this morning. Your first action, once we get there, is going to be election of your vice chair. And we'll give you the instructions when we get there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to roll call and confirmation of quorum. Ms. Smith?
Yes, good morning. Baldwin,
Present.
Bates,
Here.
Berry,
Present.
Giltz for Ford,
Present.
Campbell,
Present.
Cooper, Delano,
Present.
Espinosa, Estes, Hickling,
Present.
Kersey Ledgerwood, Milia,
Present.
Nieves Ruiz, Oles, Olson,
Present.
Reyes,
Present.
Smith,
Present.
Underwood, Uribe, Witt,
Present.
Zubritsky.
Present.
Madam Chair, that concludes the roll call, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you. It is now time for public comments on action items. This is the first of two opportunities for public comments. Public comments on action items are heard before action is taken at the beginning of this meeting, and comments that are more general will be heard near the end. Comments may be made in person or online by those joining us via Zoom. People wishing to comment on action items in person must complete a speaker's introduction card. Each speaker is limited to 2 minutes. Members of the public joining us virtually who wish to speak will use the raise hands feature on the Zoom screen. If attending by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. When you're called, staff will unmute your microphone and will ask you to state your name and contact information for the record. Ms. Lisa, is there anyone online wishing to comment on action items?
I do not see any hands raised on the virtual side.
All right, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak in person?
We have not received any requests.
All right, public comments may also be submitted by email or phone message before the meeting. Were any submitted by email or phone?
We did not receive any by email or phone, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Well, let's move on to our action items. Ms. Whittington, you are the presenter for all of the items today.
Okay, well, thank you very much again, Madam Chair. The first item on your agenda is the election of your 2025 TDLCB Vice Chair. As was mentioned earlier, the Metro Plan Orlando Board appoints 3 elected officials to this board, 1 representing each county, Orange, Seminole, and Osceola. Historically, you've respected an annual rotation of these counties with regard to the officers. Last year, Commissioner Myra Uribe served as our chair. And this year in Seminole County, and Mayor Bates was our vice chair. This year, the board has appointed Mayor Pat Bates as the chair for 2025. And so at this time, we look to you for the election of the vice chair, which would be from Osceola County, and it would in turn be Mayor Jackie Espinosa. So with that as background, we look for a motion to approve Ms. Espinosa as your vice chair for 2025.
Question.
Yeah, I have a question. My only concern is
mayor's not here and hasn't come yet.
Mhm.
Should we table this to see if she comes to make sure that she accepts the position? Or
And it
do
is-
you think procedurally we just move forward?
It's your prerogative if you would like to, I mean, if it's the board's wishes to delay it.
I mean, we're hoping she comes.
We're hoping she comes. We're hoping that she.
And trust me, I'm not trying to take on more. I'm just trying to just be fair to her,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's all.
I know that she was briefed before even the Metro Plan Board meeting yesterday. She was briefed on both of these responsibilities. So again, if it's
She felt okay with it?
Gary briefed her. I did
Oh,
not. So
Where's Gary?
we can do that. We can table it, Madam Chair. We can table it, Commissioner, we can table this. Since it is Osceola's turn, we can table it today. We can bring it back to the next meeting. It's however you all would like to proceed.
Okay, let me point out one thing. I have an out-of-town meeting in May. And so now we're gonna put somebody in who isn't here. And that's my only concern is I feel like we're putting her in a position, since she's not at this meeting, to chair this meeting in May. And I'm not sure that's fair to her or to all of you here. And I'm sorry to miss it, but I have to be out of state.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, that is, we can work around that. We have
Okay.
a very capable immediate past chair that if you're not able to be here, we can always go to our immediate past chair. And
We'll
if
do that.
she is not able to be here, we can prep the we actually, the bylaws call for the QATF chair in the event that we would prep him. As long as we have a quorum, we would be able to move forward.
Okay.
But we would certainly like to have the elected officials in place. So if you would like, we can table this until we get a.
Make a suggestion that we would just drop it down later in the agenda, readdress it, and hopefully she makes her presence felt.
Sure.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll move on. I think I can go through the rest of.
Yes, Madam Chair, the
these,
rest of these, I don't need to present each one
Okay.
of them because they are, except for B and C, the rest are statutorily required and we do them every year in February. So
Okay,
they're there for your.
all right,
approval.
so item B is acknowledgement of summary of public comments received at the November 14th, 2024 TDLCB workshop. And that's in your tab 1. Item C is approval of the November 14th, 2024 TDLCB meeting minutes, and I do need a motion.
So moved, Jaribi? So moved, Jaribi, sorry.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Item D is approval of the 2025 TDLCB membership certification, which is in tab 3, and I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Item E is approval of the 2025 Quality Assurance Task Force members, which is in tab 4, and I need a motion.
So moved, Jaribi?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Item F is approval of the 2025 QATF officers, Mr. Wayne Olson as chairperson and Ms. Marilyn Baldwin as vice chair, and I need a motion. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Item G, approval of the 2025 TDLCB bylaws, and I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. And item H approval of the 2025 grievance procedures and grievance committee members. And I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously.
And Madam Chair, good news, Mayor Espinosa has joined us online.
Oh,
And so
yay.
if we can just say good morning to her and see if, make sure she's connected. Mayor, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, welcome to the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board.
Thank you.
We are at action items, and there is an item that the 2025 board elections happen, which result in Osceola County as the vice chair. And the members of the board wanted to ensure that you are amenable to accepting as the Osceola County representative on the board, that you would be the vice chair.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Right, thank you so much. And with that, Madam Chair, if we can go back and have that.
Yeah.
Motion.
Thank you.
I need a motion for,
Motion for the election of the new slate of members with Mayor Bates being the chair, Mayor Espinosa being vice chair, and me being secretary, or I don't know what we are. The third.
yeah, you're the third.
Pass here.
Third wheel.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose like sign. Thank you.
Thank you
and-
all. I appreciate it. I apologize for my delay in signing in, little technical difficulties here, but we got it.
Awesome. Thank
Oh, I
you.
wouldn't
Thank you.
know about technical problems ever. Like every day. All right, moving on to presentations and status reports. We have 4 presentations today. The first one is the Florida Sunshine Law Refresher, which is in tab 7. Miss Virginia Whittington.
Okay, good morning, Madam Chair and members. Each year at the first meeting of our board and advisory committees, we present a sunshine law refresher, just so that we start the year out on an even playing field with everyone, as we have different members joining at different times. So we just go through this with each of our advisory committees. The Metro Plan Orlando Board and the elected officials who serve on the Municipal Advisory Committee and the board, they have to go through ethics training. So we usually don't do this for them, but because this is a mixed audience, we will take you all through this. So there are 3 basic tenets of the Florida Government and Sunshine and Public Records. And that is that the meetings must be open and accessible. We have to give reasonable notice to the public to attend those meetings. And that reasonable notice usually for us is 7 to 10 business days. They have to be advertised in newspapers and on our website. And then there has to be a record of the meeting that is also accessible and available to the public afterwards. So public meetings as defined by Florida statute are all meetings of any board or commission of any state agency or authority which takes official actions. And so that applies equally to elected or appointed members of boards and those volunteers who also serve on our committees. So the Community Advisory Committee, Technical Advisory Committee, Municipal Advisory Committee, all of those advisory committees that are at Metro Plan Orlando, as well as the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board. By virtue of you sitting on this board, you are under the Sunshine Law. And although the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board is an advisory committee to the State Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged, you still are under the sunshine. So what qualifies as a meeting is any gathering, whether it's formal, casual, informal, of 2 or more members of the same board, committee, or advisory committee who discuss items that could foreseeably come before said board or committee for action at any time. This would include gatherings around the coffee pot, um, talking in the parking garage after meetings, having lunch with one another. Those things that are ancillary, but they look, or the perception of the public is that you are meeting and possibly talking about something that you could be voting on. To the right of the screen, I took some screen grabs of recent articles that have appeared in the last couple of years, sunshine law violations, just to show that it does happen and that it is still alive and people are still making assertions. And we want to make sure that you understand how easily these things could happen and what happens as a result. One of those articles talks about a person who actually turned himself in for a little vacation following being cited for sunshine law violation. So we don't want any of you to end up in that situation. So sunshine law covers all forms of communication, whether it's chatting over coffee, text messages, it includes emails. Metro Plan Orlando staff is very careful that when we send emails to you, that we blind copy you so that you don't inadvertently reply to all. Because if you reply to all, that's what causes the issues. And we are careful, or we try to be careful every now and then when there's a miss, but just please be careful that if you are replying, that you reply to the sender only. Sunshine law also applies to social media, Facebook pages, Instagram, chat in any type of Snapchat or whatever that situation is in terms of social media, it is applicable. I also like to say, if you're sending messages, carrier pigeon, person going between, there cannot be a conduit that goes between two people. All of those are violations. So there are sanctions, and those, when you look at the word unintended violation, that's those gathering around the coffee pot, writing notes to each other while you're sitting there leaning over. If someone calls a foul ball, that could be a fine of up to $500. If you knowingly violate, it is a criminal offense, second-degree misdemeanor with penalties up to $500 and 60 days or 60 days in jail or both. A whole lot of attorney's fees. It's kind of easy to fall into these. It's hard to get out, and it's very, very costly. You could be removed from your position, and anything that you have done, any actions that you have taken could be nullified and or reversed as a result. So what should you do? When in doubt, just reach out. Let us know if you need to have a meeting with one of your colleagues. We're happy to post those meetings. We're happy to make sure that the public knows about it to the extent that we need to. And we help to keep you from having to go through any of those things that we just talked about. One last thing that I want to mention is that it sounds as though you cannot have any type of communication with any of the people who are seated around. You can, if you are in professional groups or organizations or any types of events that you have that are outside of Metro Plan Orlando, you can go to social events. Just don't talk about the items that are on your agenda. Don't talk about how you're going to vote. And if in doubt, again, just let us know. We will post it and we will keep that for the record. And so that is it. That's all I have for you on today with regard to the refresher. If you have any questions, I'm happy to respond. All right. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, next we have our Health Services Transportation Plan update. Oh, you are here.
Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning.
My name is Sarah Goolsby. I'm with Benish, and we are consultant. We assisted Links in updating their Human Services Transportation Plan for 2025. And this is an update to the 2022 plan they did a few years ago. And I did want to mention the document that was provided to you recently is in a final draft form. And then the final version of this plan will be brought to you at your May meeting for approval. So you do have some additional time to review the document and kind of digest it a little bit. And you're welcome to come back to Links with any questions or comments about the plan. So I did want to make you aware of that. All right. So today I'll just give a brief overview of the coordinated plan and what it is. I'll talk a little bit about the Links service area, and I'll summarize our public outreach and the results of our needs assessment. And then I'll go over our strategies to address those needs that we came up with, as well as our implementation plan, and then our next steps. So the Human Services Transportation Plan, or the Coordinated Plan as it is also called, the purpose is to ensure that transportation services are effective, efficient, and responsive to the needs of seniors and individuals with disabilities. It's also required for projects seeking Section 53 funding from the Federal Transit Administration. Keep in mind that it is a little bit different than the Transportation Disadvantaged Service Plan. The TDSP is a state requirement that is required by the Florida Commission for the Transportation Disadvantaged for state funding. And they do have some similar elements to them, but they are a little bit different. However, this coordinated plan will help inform the upcoming update to the TDSP, which I believe is coming in May as well. So as far as what elements we have in the coordinated plan, there is a service assessment where we assess the available transportation services within the Link service area. We identify transportation needs for seniors and people with disabilities. We identify strategies to address the transportation needs, and then we prioritize the strategies for implementation. And then we also involve stakeholders throughout the entire process to get their input, as well as other outreach activities. So Links' service area includes 3 counties: Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties. And Links provides over 60 fixed routes, 11 on-demand NeighborLink routes. They have the Access Links paratransit service for the ADA and transportation disadvantaged eligible individuals. They have a van pool program. They have 3 downtown limo routes, 2 fast link commuter routes, and they also have connections to the Sunrail. They also have 13 coordinated system providers. And so those are the agencies contracted with Links to provide transportation services through the 5310 program. The current population of this area is around 2.3 million people. There are around 13% of the population are seniors. Almost 12% have a disability. Almost 13% are low-income individuals, and almost 5% do not have access to a vehicle. And then about 6% of the population are veterans. And this is about equal to or a little bit less than the Florida averages for these demographics that we found. So although the peer review is not a required element for this plan, we did look at 4 Florida agencies as well as 3 agencies outside of Florida. And we specifically looked at their programs and projects related to the 5310 program and their populations to look at best practices and see what programs they have out there. So the Florida agencies we looked at were PSTA in Pinellas County, Breeze in Sarasota, Votran and Volusia, and then the Miami-Dade Transit. And then outside of Florida, we looked at Kansas City, Las Vegas, and San Antonio. And then, so up on the slide here, I just have some of the more notable best practices that we found. And so those include ensuring that a paratransit app provides a log for users to track previous trips and manage rider information, as well as have access to real-time data. Also implement one application that accommodates paratransit and mobility on-demand trips for reservations. Partner with third-party operators or rideshare companies to offer same-day reservations for paratransit users. And then also implement a taxi or rideshare subsidy program for flexible on-demand trips designated locations or activity centers. So outreach played a pretty big role in the process to update this plan. First, we did a NeighborLink onboard survey. And so we had members of our team went on the buses for each route over a day or two to help facilitate surveys of the riders. And so over a 2-week period, we received 152 responses. And the purpose of this survey was really just to find out who is using the service and how they're using the services. And then we held 2 stakeholder working group meetings, which I will talk about in more detail in a little bit. We also reviewed last year's Access Links customer satisfaction survey to help gain insight into the needs of Access Links clients. And then we also attended the TDLCB November public meeting to listen to the public comments on transportation services. So for the stakeholder working group, we held one in-person and one virtual stakeholder working group meeting. With both meetings, we had representatives from a total of 19 organizations, and these included participants from county departments and from nonprofit organizations whose clients are represented in this plan. And then some of the stakeholders themselves used Links services as well. And then we also had representatives from FDOT, District 5, and from Metro Plan. So the first meeting was in person, and we had 10 participants from 9 organizations. We gave a presentation providing an overview of the plan development process, and then throughout the presentation, we had several polling questions. And some of the recurring themes we found in the answers, which included many responses about Access Links barriers or needs. Those included long wait time, lack of real-time information, the need for faster service and same-day scheduling, and more reliable service. There was also mention of the need for closer or more bus stops for the fixed route service, the financial burden to individuals who use transit a lot, and then some of the coordinated contractors also expressed a need for more or newer vehicles for their fleet. So in addition to those polling questions, we had 2 activities. The first activity was a point of interest activity where the stakeholders were split into 2 groups. And so they each had their own map laid out in front of them on the table, and they just identified areas that they felt needed additional transit services. And so some of the highlights from that activity included there's higher demand within connections to health centers. There's limited services in Apopka, St. Cloud, and outside of Point Siena. And then also west side of Orlando needs better connectivity, particularly where there's some development occurring outside of the urban core. And then in the second activity, that was a project prioritization activity. So each group was able to come up with specific priority projects, and they each came up with 5. And some of them were pretty similar between the groups. And those projects included new or more vehicles for van pool, expanding access links, operations in general, improvements to technology, having more marketing or outreach available to let everyone know what services are available, as well as bus stop improvements. So the second stakeholder workshop was virtual, and we had 17 participants from 15 organizations for that one. There was a presentation on the results of our needs assessment. We presented our draft strategies, and we also went over our proposed evaluation process as well. So through polling questions, we asked for their input on those items, and they did help us identify top 3 strategies. Those strategies I'll talk about in a little bit. They also identified some of our prioritization criteria that they felt was more important as well. And so they really helped us out with kind of fleshing out our strategy prioritization. So after our assessment of the service area and after our outreach, we came up with a list of unmet transportation needs. And these include service needs such as same-day scheduling for Access Links users, service expansion to key points of interest, reliable and on-time service, and later links service in regards to fixed route and neighbor link services particularly. There were capital or infrastructure needs, so more new vehicles and operators and more bus stops with amenities. There was a need for real-time tracking technology, and then also a need for more marketing and outreach and for affordable transportation. So after identifying these needs, we came up with our strategies. And we started by reviewing the strategies from the 2022 coordinated plan to see what still applied. Since it's only been 3 years since the last plan, so there are a lot of the same needs. So some strategies were carried over or updated and reprioritized. And then we also developed some new ones as well. And most of these strategies are focused on seniors and individuals with disabilities in accordance with Section 5310, but they can also benefit the broader public. So these were the 9 strategies that we came up with. They are to improve service efficiency and coordination, increase accessible infrastructure, deliver new or extended services, enhance customer service experience, expand access to reliable and accessible fleets, increase financial accessibility to services, improve efficiency through technology, increase marketing and distribution of information, and then identify other funding priorities. So after identifying those strategies, we came up with a prioritization process and criteria. And so there are six criteria, and then the stakeholders helped us identify which ones should be weighted higher than some of the other strategies when we go through our evaluation process. So there was public support. So, which means, you know, if the strategy is supported in our public outreach, if the strategy is a quality of life improvement, if the strategy has the potential for connectivity to new points of interest, financial feasibility, ease of implementation, and also impact on user safety. So after going through our prioritization process, on the slide here is how or are the results of those. So we had 4 high priority strategies, which included the improved service efficiency and coordination, increase accessible infrastructure, deliver new or extended services, and enhance customer service experience. The medium priorities included expand access to reliable and accessible fleets, increase financial accessibility to services, improve efficiency through technology. And then the lower priorities were increase marketing and distribution of information, and then identify other funding opportunities. So prioritizing the strategies helped us form an action plan with near-term, intermediate-term, and long-term actions. And so here I'll talk about our near-term strategies. And so these are our strategies or action items where the goal is, you know, to implement them within a 1 to 3 year time frame, depending on available financials. The first strategy or action items under the near term include the improved service efficiency and coordination action items. And so those are identified dialysis centers within or adjacent to NeighborLink service areas to improve scheduling and wait times for clients. Increase flexibility of scheduling access links trips by leveraging the use of companies like Uber or Lyft where practical, and coordinate other internal and external modes of public transit services to develop a system for the coordination of shared capabilities and schedules. And then there are also the increased accessible infrastructure action items, which include established partnerships with local and county governments to increase accessible infrastructure. And when we talk about an accessible infrastructure, in this case, we're talking mostly about bus stops and bus stop amenities and where they're located. Enhance amenities at existing stops near senior communities and medical facilities, and identify key points of interest for seniors and individuals with disabilities that do not have bus stop within a reasonable distance. And still under near term, we have the deliver new or extended services action items, which include providing first mile, last mile service in new geographic areas through taxi or van pool, increase frequency of fixed route services, and increase span of service for NeighborLink and fixed route services. And then action items under enhancing customer service experience, we identified develop a formal sensitivity training program for Access Links employees with a focus on handling customer phone calls and assisting with boarding and unloading vehicles. So under the intermediate term action items, these are on a 4 to 6 year time frame. And action items under the expand access to reliable and accessible fleet strategy includes continue to allow human service transportation providers the ability to lease ADA accessible vehicles of varying sizes through the agency van pool program. Allow transportation providers the ability to purchase replacement and expansion vehicles where the agency van pool program is not practical, and encourage the sharing of vehicles among subrecipients to leverage the resources available. And then under increased financial accessibility to services strategy, we have the action items, create a sponsorship or donation program to encourage other entities to provide bus passes at no or low cost to individuals or nonprofit agencies, and increase affordability of transit for seniors and individuals with disabilities. And then finally, under intermediate term action items, these are for the improved efficiency through technology strategy, but they include identifying dialysis centers within or adjacent to NeighborLink service areas to improve scheduling and wait times, increase flexibility of scheduling access links trips by leveraging the use of Uber and Lyft where practical, coordinate with other internal and external modes of public transit services to develop a system for the coordination of shared capabilities and schedules. And then finally, the long-term implementation action items. So for under increasing marketing and distribution of information, we have review and update links website to ensure accurate 5310 program information is provided. Continue to promote travel training information to human service agencies and notify the public that the service is available, and request updated contact information for Access Links clients to improve the availability of mobility device data and multiple ways to deliver information to clients. And then finally, for the last strategy, identify other funding opportunities. We have 2 action items, and those include seeking out funding opportunities through the USDOT competitive grant programs for funding for innovative projects, particularly to use for on-demand information, real-time data. And then also explore the CTD's Innovative Service Development Grant to potentially provide funding for on-demand services for TD eligible individuals. So as far as next steps, we will finalize our plan based on any comments we receive, and then links will be back at the May TDLCB meeting to present the final version of the coordinated plan for your approval. And with that, I will take any questions.
Questions from the board?
What's the best way of writing one of the forums?
Yeah, yes. There.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation and for the work you've done. I just want to make everyone aware that we have a new sheriff in town. So those long-term things that we're thinking of financing, they're not long-term anymore. They're like, we need to do that right now. We don't know what, like my agency right now, only me, I had about $2 million in grants frozen these past couple of months just because of the new directive. We're gonna have to be very honest here and start thinking, because most of our services, if I'm incorrect, Virginia, let me know, are funded by the federal government. So if there are gonna be some kind of federal cuts, we have to start thinking, how is that gonna affect the people that we provide services to? And that's gonna be having a lot of very honest conversations. I know when we talk budget, we planners like to put everything like in the back because we know that it's not pleasant, but the reality is we are gonna have to prepare ourselves for this new environment. If we really care for the services for our seniors and the disabled, we're gonna have to start finding really quick how we're gonna fund these services. And again, we don't know, there has been no budget approved, but we do depend mostly on federal for to serve this program, right, Virginia?
I believe that most of the services for the transportation disadvantaged come from the trip and equipment grant at the state level, and local funding partners chip in for the deficit. And you'll see that in just a moment with Mr. Hickling's presentation that he's going to make. Now, there are some federal grants that come down, and we just don't know at this point when, where, and how it's going
And
to
that's the
impact us.
money
But
in the federal too.
we have to keep our eye on the moving bouncing ball. as
Yeah,
we
it's not
mentioned.
something we can just hold up because I'm very sure that a lot of those state grants, also the federal government may be involved to kind of transfer.
Right,
So it's something to be aware of.
thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's, that is a good point. Things have changed a bit since we wrapped up this draft, so. But thanks for bringing that up.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Go
I have a question. Can you please clarify the rationale for evaluating? I know you called out like some states that you guys looked at that were outside of Florida. Was that to kind of identify characteristically similarities between what they were doing there and what we do in Florida? Or was it to possibly things that they're doing outside of the state that can inform the strategies, the coordinated strategies that you guys came up with?
Yeah, we wanted to take a look outside of Florida to see if anyone was doing anything different than what we have seen in Florida. And we chose those three outside of Florida based on their service area size. So we wanted to pick one similar size to the Link service area. Also, agencies who receive or are direct recipients of 5310 funding as well, just like Links, and if they have like a big or decent sized tourist area as well, just to kind of make sure that we're comparing well enough. Sure.
I guess I do have a follow-up question. So, with all due respect, like we have a meeting every year where we hear the concerns and you're just confirming all the concerns that we hear anyways. And I've been on this board now, I think 6 years, and it hasn't changed, right? And I know you're a consultant and God bless you for trying to come, but realistically, everyone says money, okay? So we went 1 year and got more money. Again, it didn't change. The population's growing. Over the next, by 2050, Orange County will 2.8 million people are expected to come to Florida in the less than 10 years. And Orange County will be the second highest populated. Miami-Dade's number one expected, number two is here. There are other needs that are also happening. I sit on the Transportation Steering Committee for DOT, and we also are a snowbird state, seniors. There's not one thing that is defined for disability or access links or the need. I mean, I'd love to see really a more comprehensive, a actual work group that goes in and goes out. Like, it would be great to follow people more than just a day or riding along and asking them a question. Like, where are we dropping off? And it's not intended on the company. You guys are trying. It's not even on Norm. But with all due respect, 6 years later, it's the same thing. Nothing's changed. And we can pay for another study 10 years from now, and nothing's going to change. Have we maybe looking at this differently on your solutions? Because your solutions are make it a high priority, get the mapping right, get more money, get more this, get more trucks, get new cars. You know, you all hear that, we hear that. But realistically, have we like identified like people where we do like a long term, like someone who goes to dialysis and follow them for 6 months? Where is clearly dialysis patients, only because I know this well, have up days, have down days. So you can't even compare it once. You've got people with visual disabilities who need it for more than just doctor's appointments. I mean, it would be really great to make that comprehensive review, something a little long-term where you identify people who'd be willing to commit, who come from different needs and different prospects. Because I don't mean to sound like a Nancy, but we hear this every year. We hear the same complaints every year. you all are trying. This has never been an attempt of someone trying to not do well. But we're hearing the same solutions every year, same complaints every year. Maybe we need to look at this differently, like really invest. And I know that costs money into really identifying 5, 6 different types of riderships and seeing where are we really messing up. Because a lot of times if you walk those steps, you know, if you're that more engaged, you're going to see things. Because you ask me something and I'll tell you what I'm thinking right now, right? But to be with me for a week, it's completely different than for me to tell you a survey that makes sense. It's like actually going through it. I don't know. I just feel, and again, I'm probably just, it's just disillusioning, and it's not on you. You're doing your job and everyone is, but we just haven't quite mastered how we really help. And I think everyone on this board, we want people to have better,
Yeah, of course.
but there are restrictions. And honestly, if you came back and did this, you know, last year, we'd get the same thing. Next year, we'd get the same thing.
Mhm.
We're just hearing the same, but we're not really finding any real solutions or trying to really pinpoint and dissect where the drop off is. And I would love to see something that more comprehensive, because it just, nothing's changed. Like, I don't see anything differently than we've heard for me, 6 years, for you all, much longer. You know, this is your careers, these are you all. But for me in this role, and then I'll just even step away. 18 years ago, when my mom used Access Links for 7 years, it was the same thing,
Mhm.
you know, and I'm talking like 2006. It's gotten better, Norm. I'm not going to blame you. It's gotten better, but it's what my mom went through in 2006 and what I'm hearing today in 2024. It's the same. Okay, so I just feel like, and not everyone, my mom had me, I would go pick her up if she was feeling weak and couldn't get, or how many times she actually had to go to the hospital from dialysis because she can't do a round trip because she had a bad episode. It's just not black and white in this industry, and what we're doing here. It's not a black and white. It's not just going shopping and coming home. There's so many other factors. And so that's all.
No, sure. No, I appreciate the input. It is, you know, everywhere is experienced the same thing. It's always the same needs, and it's really, it takes a long time to chip away at those needs. But a possibility. So this particular plan, we had 4 months to complete it. But we could also add in as a recommendation, you know, maybe for links to do some kind of additional outreach of that kind of scope, or something like that. And then
You almost need like a documentary. Remember the story of the guy who went to McDonald's for 30 days, right? And you almost need that to really understand. And I'm not saying a ton of people, but it would be great. Somebody who rides regularly, that you stay with them and actually imagine if, you know, you could have done that where you actually had folks. And I would actually like to say all 3 counties, because we all have different ridership needs too, to, you know, take, you know, 2 people in each county with different needs and be with them for 2 weeks or 30 days and really see what they're going through in and out. I think you'd get a lot more comprehensive of what that is, especially dialysis. Dialysis is a whole other, it's one thing for me to go to the doctors. It's another thing for me to go to dialysis, you know,
Right.
very, very different, medically needed.
Mhm.
So, and I think, you know, in the transportation factor, we're trying to do that for people who are visually impaired and people with ADA and how they cross the street. And we do the blind experience, and we actually, I never realized that when you cross the street, it's not straight, it's actually angled, you know, and I never realized, I didn't know which way was east, south, north, or west when I'm blind, you know?
Mhm.
So there's just better, and maybe we need to look at, when we look at these kind of surveys, really diving into walking in those shoes. That might help, I hope. That's all.
I think I've been on at least as long as you have, and my frustration is that I hear, okay, 1 to 3 years, we're gonna be here. But now we're hearing 1 to 3 years, and that was supposed to be done 1 to 3 years ago. And again, it's not you, it's like, we're we don't seem to be moving forward. And that bothers me because I do know a couple people who use Access Links and they have no problem with the service. I'm not complaining at all about that, but I'm just saying, I'm not one who uses it, but I know people who do. I feel like you that we're not really moving forward. We're hearing the same thing, the same concerns, the same, we're gonna do this 1 to 3 years, 4 to 6 years. 4 to 6 years for people who are using this system, that's a long time. And plus, is it really gonna be different? Are we really gonna see the changes that are up there? Cause I love the forward thinking, but, and you're not the one who's gonna make those decisions, but how do we actually move forward? And we need to do it today, not 4 to 6 years from now. But it was a great report, and thank you for doing what you're doing. But again, it's just kind of frustrating for a lot of these folks, especially who use this system, and hearing 4 to 6 years.
Right. Right. Madam Chair, I think you had another hand on this side, Ms. Baldwin.
Oh, Miss Baldwin, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. I'm one of the users of this service, and I have used this system for 30+ years. It's the same challenges. You might solve a problem, say, for 6 months to a year, and then we seem to come back around to the same issue, the same challenges. We haven't done anything innovative that the riders can really see in quite a while. You know, it's scheduling. We're there discussing this all the time. Dialysis. One of the things that we used to do with the dialysis center, and I'd like for Betsy to tell me whether we're still using it, is we started this task force years ago, mainly because we were having serious issues with dialysis and with persons with disabilities who needed to get to work and who were not getting to work on time, who were losing their jobs. But back to the dialysis. One of the things that we did years ago, maybe 15+ years ago, is that we looked at where the dialysis centers were, where the clients lived, and we worked with the social workers, the doctors, the nurses to help these clients to go to the facility that was closest to them, not what was convenient for the doctors. Are we still doing that, or did that go by the wayside?
So can you turn Betsy?
We are still doing that. However, patient choice is more than, it holds more weight than a doctor's choice in this day and age. And the dialysis patients, there's been kind of a shift of the instead of the doctor saying, you know, you're not going to get good care if you don't come all the way over to, you know, from East Orlando to West Orlando to where my clinic is, nobody's going to take good care of you. They're not saying that anymore. The patients appear to be more loyal to their doctors and willing to travel. So that's something different that I have seen.
But that willing to travel that long distance is what causes them to be on the vehicle longer.
So that's
does
my,
anybody
so that's where
explain
I
that
come
to
in and try to convince them that they're not doing themselves any favors 3 times a week. And they're complaining that it takes, you know, hours to get from here to there, and they have to make so many stops. And so I do my best to educate them about, you know, this is what's happening because you're traveling so far for your clinic. So that's still going on. And I have another idea that I'll talk about when I give my presentation too.
And the other thing I would like to see us really try, Norm, is to have a small group, a working group, and let's look at what we can't do for what these clients are asking. And it's being done in other communities, and that some type of pilot program to maybe offer riders, 5 or 6 days of same day service a year or something. But we've got to offer something different and something innovative and something that really works for our riders. It doesn't make any sense for us to sit here year after year and go through the same issues. These are wonderful reports. You've done an outstanding job. But is this really going to impact our riders in a reasonable, realistic way? That's my 2 cents.
Madam Chair, you have another hand on this side.
Yes.
I just have more of a comment. I think some of the action items that were listed here specifically on improving efficiency through technology, I don't really see much of the technical piece on there. They're talking about, I mean, in here, we're talking about schedules. We've been talking about that for quite some time as well. And that's in 4 to 6 years, but people are using it daily to schedule, and that's always been a problem. But what technology has already been identified that we can use? AI is a huge thing right now that we could use to help with the scheduling process. There's plenty of technology out there that we could use now instead of waiting 4 to 6 years, but I don't see in the action plan where there's been anything that has absolutely been identified. Identifying dialysis is not innovation and technology. We're just identifying dialysis centers to improve schedule and wait time, but what technology will be used to do that? So I just think that's something to consider, because I don't feel that all action items is relative to the strategy itself. So I think some of those need to be redefined and be a little bit more clear of how we're going to reach those strategies. And I think that's been problems in the past as well. The action items don't align with the strategy. It has to be a little bit more definitive.
Take relook at that and maybe rework some of those. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, I thought I was old school, but Maryland's got me by 10 years or so. I hear what everyone's saying. I spend a lot of time in DC on different efforts. Unless much money comes from Tallahassee or DC to look at public transportation and gear towards a European model where things are efficient, more emphasis is put on, paratransit, fixed bus, trains. If the money's not there, yes, there are goals we'd like to attain, but if the money's not there, it's not going to happen. So looking at, and I don't know with either state or federal administration if this is even on their radar right now or ever. Yes, things we'd like to do versus, let's try to keep the ball rolling and make small incremental positive steps forward if possible, has to be the reality.
Yeah, and really the point of this plan is to just kind of prioritize these needs. And so when funding does become available, links can go and look at their priorities and see where to put their funding towards. And the timeframes aren't necessarily, it's not necessarily going to take, over 7 years to do, the longer term items, although it can. It's just that it's not as much of a priority as the more near term or intermediate strategies or actions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Run, go sit down quickly.
You all weren't too bad, don't worry.
And now we have
Yeah.
Norm.
I want to thank you for warming up the audience today. Virginia, what do I have to pay to go first next time, right? So, so with me, before we get too far into this, I have my boss as Chief Operating Officer, Dave Burrows. I think you've met him once before. We all obviously have Joey Hogan representing TransDev as our provider, and then our Senior Manager for Mobility Services is Salita Stubbs. So I ain't taking this alone. So that's why I'm playing him out. So if you like what I say, tell Dave. If you don't like what I say, send him a letter. So anyways, here we go. So as far as like you've seen before, we're going to provide you an overview, talk about the trip demand, talk about our performance, a little bit about trip duration. That is something that we've added to this chart because there was a concern that was expressed at with Nika Berry. Thank you so much that maybe people are spending too much time on it. So we want to kind of show you how we track that. Some customer service activity, service cost and funding. And God, I hope we have a good discussion when we get to that chart, because I think it's going to show you some things. And I do appreciate all the comments. I have some comments on that too. Opportunities, summary, and then we'll take questions and close, and I'm sure we'll have some. So you're going to see from the chart, we had about an 8% increase over 2023 and 2024, the calendar year. And so the demand is growing for the services. That's the all up access link. So that includes ADA and TD. On-time performance, the team at TransDev is doing a really good job. And here lately, they've been really even better, above 90%, right at 91, 92% on a consistent basis. Couple, anomalies once in a while, different things happen. Now you're going to see the speed of answers not going to be to what your satisfaction is. We got kind of blowing out of the water there a little bit. We had a implementation of a new Paw Pass mobile payment program. You talk about technology, it's easy to say, it's hard to do sometimes. And so folks making that transition, they did a lot of calls to the customer service world, and we tried to take each one of them on, and it just raised the time of the call. So, and we still have a high volume of calls coming in asking where their rides are, et cetera. The cost of service challenges, we will talk about that. And I have a chart for you that will, I think, be a little surprising. I'll go to Mr. Luis there, exactly what you're talking about, sir. And so then we talk about our paratransit fleet. We are in the process of trading out some of the old dilapidated vehicles that thank goodness are leaving. It says 16 new vehicles. We actually have 19 on site now, and we got more coming. So you'll see that transition, and that'll be a big boon to the customers. So then the next is just the trip demand. You can see we are up to 648,826 trips. Now that's every trip that we perform out there in access links. So that's, you can see by month, it's been going up a little over 54,000 trips. So we're working hard, and we're doing a lot of work out there on behalf of this community and service area. You can see the trips on the upper left-hand there for 2024. You can see the on-time performance, and a lot of that on-time performance there where it got a little less than that 90% where we wanted is we had a lot of vehicles that have just absolutely, not only did they reach their service life, they just went kaput. And we made a decision not to go start replacing a bunch of transmissions and engines and things of that sort, which was just costly, that we were going to bite the bullet and bring in the new vehicles as fast as they come in. So, but overall for the year, 91%. So met the goal. That's kudos to the team. And you can see down on the trip count by purpose, you can see employment and dialysis are right up there neck and neck. And if you add medical of 78,000 with dialysis and cancer treatment, we are a medical appointment provider. So, so we take that very, very seriously. And we've talked about that before. So a lot of people are depending on us to get them to their medical appointments and for their quality of life. The new chart, I know we've only shown this a couple times, a lot of information on it and everything, but if you just take it where it says mileage classification. When somebody calls and says, I need to take a trip from A to B, if it falls within 1 to 5 miles, we allow for an hour on that trip. And we break it down and we track what is the average distance of those trips and then how long do they actually take. While we may allow an hour, because if they have a mobility device and it allows time to stop, escort them to the vehicle, get them up the lift, get them secured in the vehicle, get everything secured and then drive, it provides that time. But you can see we're making on all our different mileage classifications and the average duration on the trip, we're making it. Now, do we have some anomalies at times? Yes, we do. And when we have those, we deal with them and we work together so that they don't happen again. So hopefully that chart's helpful to you all and going forward. This is a chart that I kind of warned you about during that time period in December when we were in the heart of doing this transition with the Paw Pass mobile payment. We went up to about 7 minutes and 47 seconds. Not what we're happy about. I will tell you the last 4 or 5 days I've been, I watch it every morning. We've been down in the 2 minutes and the 1 minute time frame. So I'm very happy with the team. They have brought that back down. So you will see in the future, these charts have significantly improved. But again, you can also see from November, we had 49,000 calls and we went up in December to 57, almost 58,000 calls. So a lot were being handled and they all took a long time in many cases trying to work people through on how to get registered on the new mobile app. So here's the one that will get your attention. Goes to everything you were just saying. You talk about funding. So the top line there, that red line, that's the number of TD trips that we do each month. That, like, if you look at October, if you look at 788,466.56 cents, you will see that that is the amount of what we could have charged to the state. That green line is what we get reimbursed. And I must say, when we talk about the TD program, I've been here now for 6 years. Every year, the amount that has come from and been allocated to from Tallahassee to this service area has gone down. When I first started, it was closer to $5 million a year. It is now at about 3.5 million. So that's a major problem because this is not sustainable. And when you go back and you talk like we had this discussion just a little bit, the commissioner, they're going to be dealing with it. Mayor, you're going to be dealing with it. Every local official is going to be dealing with where is the money going to come from. So at some point, we have to decide and really have a strong discussion as to what kind of service we're really going to provide. Because when you look at those 15,000 trips, a lot of them are dialysis and cancer-related medical trips. Those are quality of life. Those are life-sustaining trips. But who's picking up that cost for? It's the local governments here. It's the Seminole counties. It's the Osceola County. It's the Orange County. It's the taxpayers in those counties that are paying for those trips. So that's kind of the pressure that we're under right now, because at the same time as we hear, we'd like to expand service, we'd like to push things out there. At the same, on the other ear, we're hearing, how do we cut cost? How do we cut cost? How do we cut costs? Don't cut service. Don't minimize on service. You can't. So you can see the quandary that we're in. It's a dilemma. So when we talk about not to tell the commissioners or mayors, or I would never do that, and I don't want to step out of my line, but at some point, we're going to have to decide what kind of service we really want the TD service to be. And that's really going to be a policy decision that has to be made. I think it starts at this board. I mean, we can do it as a provider, but it has to go up all the way up to Tallahassee and probably beyond. So that's my 2 cents.
Now, I very much agree with you.
Okay. So that's why we're showing the chart.
I don't disagree.
That's why we're showing, but so we get reimbursement for about a third probably not doing the math completely correct, but it's about a third there that we're getting. So going forward in the next 1 to 3 years, I think that's a major part of this discussion. Again, so when we're getting reimbursed at 264, where's the money for the technology that would make it? I'd love to put AI in. We're talking to people all the time about AI. And so that you can make your reservations without even talking to a human, and you know, you would get almost instantaneous reaction. Where do we get that money? Because that's, you know, that's $1 million project right off the bat. So anyways, now that I've made everybody happy.
Or I'm gonna ask a second question. Do you have anyone that follows the riders and their eligibility who are on Medicaid, Medicare, that
We d-
could have access to their providers' transportation? Because I have been told by some of my team members, employees, that they have patients that choose to use Access Links because it's on time.
Yes.
And their health providers' transportation program may or
And
may not show up.
anecdotally, we've been told the exact same thing. Anecdotally, we know that there's been times where they made 2 reservations, one with a non-emergency medical transport paid by an insurance company, and then us, and they see who shows up first, and then they take that one. So, okay.
And from what I've been
But to
told,
answer your question, we do not have access. We do not know when somebody applies for either ADA or the TD program. We do not have access, or can we say, do you have insurance? Because they can just very well say, no, I don't, thank you. There's no way to verify that.
If I could comment on that, what I see happening is the Medicare Advantage plans, special needs programs where people that have Medicare and full Medicaid, those people don't have any co-payments for their trips. So they first choose to take those. But what has happened is the insurance companies have put a limit on the number of dialysis trips. And it shouldn't be allowed that because it's a life-sustaining treatment, but they do it and they don't tell the patients. So they'll say you only have 72 trips this year. And that's one-way trips. So 3 times a week, that's 6 trips to dialysis. And those 72 trips are gone really fast. They're inefficient systems. They leave them stranded all the time. They take us, they don't have, like, I can send a subscription by fax to Links. They don't have that. You have to call on the phone and talk to them for any communication that you have. And it's been a huge problem. So I think that's a big contributor to what's happened. I myself steer these people to Links because they're not going to get to treatment. They're just canceled. So that's a big, huge problem.
And you could see, even if they only got 75 trips, say,
Mhm.
in a year, and yet we're taking them 150 times. If half of those were taken on another service, that's other people that could, or lower this cost, this differential bar, so more people can be served. Again, that's a policy decision that would have to be made. So
that's
thank
an
you.
issue with the insurance companies, with the Medicaid program and so forth. But we are addressing it. Those patients are changing insurance providers whenever they can. But it's taken all year for people to figure out that this is what's happening.
So
So-
when you have those Medicaid individuals that have issues like that,
Mhm.
they can always call into our ARCA to make a complaint about their plan.
Exactly.
So make sure you let them know that.
And I do.
Okay.
And that would be one question: is there a way in our eligibility process to have that type of knowledge or visibility to see what is available to somebody when they're applying to us? I mean, we do as much as we can with our application and our eligibility process, but we don't have that type of visibility out there. I mean, and going forward, that might be something that would really help this program, because again, this deficit here is not sustainable. And you know the pressures that are going to come over the counties that are having to ask their taxpayers to pay this bill.
So we actually know taxpayers are paying for it now, just like they're helping subsidize regular links and access links. And it's all of us paying it. So there isn't, it's coming out of our general fund. There's no special fund that it's coming. But it almost seems like there should be some legislative change that allows you all to know benefits that aren't being paid by the providers, insurance companies, because it seems like you're going on a system that says, let us know. If you don't tell us, we don't have a way of finding out. We have no way of chiming in and actually getting those. And it'll come to the front. Maybe we start giving some attention to this. I mean, it just doesn't seem right. And I know you all do, and I want to just tell you all, as someone who sits through budget hearings, and we have our line item of millions of dollars that we give links and access links, it is your money. It's not any fancy money. It's not tourism money, it is our general fund money. So and these riders are actually paying it twice, because they're paying it when they're ridership, and then they're paying it again on their taxes, and then we're paying it again. And when we talk about quality, there's a price for quality too. And maybe that is something we need to take to our state board and obviously session's getting ready to start next month. It's completely different, but if we don't get a comprehensive handle on this, we're going to still pay for it as taxpayers. It's not going anywhere. It's the only difference is going to cost more, and we're going to pay more.
And now the commission, they allocate about 58 million, maybe a little bit more in total TD funds through the trip and equipment grant. We're getting about 3.5, yet we're one of the bigger service areas. So maybe there's something. I know they changed the formula some years ago. We weren't too thrilled about it. And it's not working in our favor, quite frankly, for us. I'm just talking about the home team here. So
And I also think that we need to get legislators to understand the funds that come out of the plate, and having access to that money sitting there too, to help pay and offset this. I mean, we need to follow the money. We really do. And we need to have some accountability. And I think it'd be worth taking to the state who legislates and lobbies for us in Tallahassee and say, hey, it always seems like we're always begging to use our own money too. Like every year, like, can you let us use our money that we collect that you're holding on? It's like a kid asking their parents, can I have my tooth fairy money to go do something? And it's just not making sense. And sadly, and I hate to say this, and Mayor Bates will agree, it never becomes a problem until it affects someone in politics personally. And I have been through this, and I continue to want to advocate. It doesn't happen to me anymore. I'd give anything to have my mom back and be fighting for it now, but I still believe that we have to fight for this, if anything. So thank you for what you try to do with what you have.
thank you.
You get what you pay for. It really seems like the companies that get the contracts with Medicare, Medicaid, whatever programs they are kind of the bottom of the barrel. I've seen some interactions with patients where they've had to wait 3, 4, 5 hours after their therapy was complete. And sometimes my staff has to stay late until the patient's picked up, because we're not going to just leave them outside the building or outside our lobby. Maybe if there was some oversight there, or more oversight there, and maybe if they got slightly more money, Access Links could address some of the issues that were brought up, and these contractors for Medicaid and Medicare, their feet could be held to the fire, and better services could be provided for most.
I was gonna say, as providers, you all can also call in those complaints to our hotline. Again, they'll have the data to do something.
Okay, and I guess they can just look on the Florida website, Florida government website.
ARCA.myflorida.com, and then telephone number is there
Okay,
for them to call, or they can file a complaint online also.
okay, thank you.
So anyways, I apologize if getting out of my lane, but anyways, I thought this was important.
We have one more hand.
Oops. Maybe to like a public-private partnership where we have maybe some of these like big, receivers of patients. Maybe some of these, they may have their own foundations or their own grants, and see if we can make up at least some of the shortfall, because I think it's gonna come to that.
I think from a practical, could it happen? Probably. So I wouldn't say no. I think that's a policy decision. That's probably above my pay grade. So,
No,
yeah.
just let it there, because I know there are elected officials here, so.
All right, well, I'll move on. Yeah. So anyways, new vehicles, we talked about that. We said 6 waiting. That was at the QATF time. I'm glad to say that those 19 have kind of cleared that. They're moving forward. We're still looking at the fleet makeup. Every year we're going to be doing this. We do have 85 vehicles, brand new vehicles on order. The 19 are with us right now. They're coming in a lot slower than Transdev would ever hoped and what we had ever hoped, but they are coming in. And they are starting to make an impact. So that's good news. The Paul Pass calls and instruction, I think we're kind of past that tsunami of, so I think you're going to start seeing a big improvement on the speed of answer. And then as we just talked about, funding for the program, the TD program. So with that in summary, we're robust in our trips, good on-time performance. We got the 19 vehicles and we've got more coming. And we're really trying to do the fleet that is out there, team's doing, and I have to hand it to the Transdev and their maintenance team. They have brought down the number of vehicles down any given day, down substantially. So they're doing really good there. We are on the call center, putting a lot of attention in that, trying to help lower the time that somebody has to wait on the phone. And then, of course, the TD program changes. We got an adverse incident reporting and training that came down from the commission. That again is another mandate that we have to do, and that's going to be due at the end of March there. So with that, we've had a lot of questions, but we'll close with that. And if there's any other questions, we'd be more than happy to take those.
I like the way you saved the good stuff for the end.
We try.
You know, that was good. I think the bottom line here, folks, is that we need more money dedicated to this, well, all over the state, and we're not getting it. So I'll certainly mention it when I go up to Tallahassee next month.
And be glad to provide you with any kind of information that you might need, from our operations. And
Thank you.
I'm sure nobody'd have a problem with that.
Anybody have any
I have a question.
other? Yes.
Whether the Paul Pass, the implementation of that has been circulated to all people, or the ridership, because
Yes.
I've had a few people tell me that they had no idea that this had changed and caused, a little bit of delay and frustration on their part. And I wondered, how have they been informed?
Well,
Ridership.
we've tried to put seat drops and we put information in each of the vehicles. We've had it out on our social media. We've tried to push it out there as much as we possibly can. Obviously, when we call into the customer service center, we are set up now to take those calls if somebody's having a problem, that we can answer those questions for them and help them get from the old system to the new system.
Thank you.
I have a question, Norm. Thank you so much. And it's regarding when riders make their schedule their rides. So when they're scheduling, are the customer service representatives trained to look at if they're scheduling a to, that they're scheduling a from at times? And I'm asking that question. I received a telephone call from a rider who had a doctor's appointment scheduled for 2 and the pickup was scheduled for 3. But the pickup was never scheduled. And just as was mentioned by Bob, so the doctor, that particular rider had to wait about 5 o'clock. Everyone was leaving and we're like, oh, you're still waiting? Even though he had reached out to dispatch, they said they were sending someone. No one came at 4, no one came at 5, call back. I think they came around 6:30, but that doctor, those employees had to wait there with that particular rider, and then they just didn't reach home until about 8:30, but had been told there was never a pickup in the system. So I was just curious as
that's
if,
very strange, because the training is, if you're a client and you call and you ask to be picked up at a certain time to go to a place. We'll call that the A leg, and that's inside baseball. Okay, right away, we ask you, do you need a return trip? So that's always part of the reservation process. Do you need that trip back?
Okay, I'll
So-
say, I'll email, because yeah, he was told that a return trip was not scheduled for that one, and
Yeah, there's an anomaly there because that's part of the training, because we always ask that question, because the assumption is if you're going to a doctor's office or an employment, you need to get back home.
Right.
And it's rare that somebody says, no, I don't need that return trip.
Okay.
So, yeah.
and
And
then
if you give me a person and if it was recently, we could even go listen to the call. Now, could the call center rep have made a mistake? It happens. Yes, it does. I'm not gonna stand before you and say it never happens and they just didn't do it. Maybe somebody knew, but if there was
I'll
some.
shoot you an email with
Okay,
the
I
information. It
appreciate
was recent. And then
Access links, right? It was a
Right, it was
patient waiting
for the
for
insurance.
a Medicaid or a Medicare
I understood
transport.
that.
That
The same
finally
type
said enough's
situation.
enough. I'm going back to access.
But those are the
links.
kind of things that we need to know about in
Right.
case it may have got slipped
I
and
understand.
misunderstood. So, yeah.
And then, so my second question is, if the new vans can hold a wheelchair and a scooter. So when the van arrived, it was one of the new vans, but from my understanding, the driver had to maneuver because the rider that was there had a wheelchair. This client was in a scooter, but had to kind of make it fit because it was like the new van could not hold both of them at the same time. So can the vans hold two? They
Well,
can?
if
Okay.
it's a van, we're not buying new vans right now. Everything's a
new-
turtle top. It's the bigger ones. So that should have not been a problem. So we'd have to look at what type of vehicle. There is one of our providers, one of the subcontractors to Transdev that does drive vans to see if that was potentially, and that may have been another scheduling issue because they asked what kind of mobility device to make sure that they're not getting a wheelchair in say a mobility or a scooter or something like that on the same vehicle, especially if they don't have room.
All right, I think once and you can identify it, you'll probably.
Okay,
have it back.
okay. Sounds
Thank
fair.
you, that's all I have.
I have a comment. It's related to, you stated that oftentimes like on the bus, there's information or handouts that are available to the clients. But like as a vision impaired rider of the service, I never know like that there's information there. Like the drivers don't notify us of that, number one. Number two, even if they did, it's not accessible. So is it possible to have some kind of protocol in place for drivers to make us aware that there's some information here, and then also making sure that information is accessible, like maybe having a QR code.
We do have
Lots of
that-
members can scan it who are vision impaired to be able to pull that up on their computer since it is, kind of like an extended part of our cognition. So
And I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, to your first part, and yes, it does have a QR code on there so that you can scan it. Unfortunately, the new vendor, they're part of the payment system, dark mode does not function the way it's supposed to. And so we are in a technical working with them to get that fixed. So they were hoping to have it mid-February. We're at the 13th. We still don't, but yeah, your point's well taken.
Say, Norm, you all are doing a very good job. If there's an announcement like about the PD surveys, I like the fact that you have told the riders about that while they're listening, waiting to reserve their trip. And there's other information that you are doing like that too. And I think that helps to get the information out that, might be on that printed stuff that we wouldn't always be able to see.
Sure.
So
And-
that is an improvement,
Well, I appreciate that, but we can always do better.
but we can
and-
do better.
Yeah, and the Paul Pass is one of those things that kind of came at a fast and furious flurry and could have done better on that one too.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm gonna give you a shout out now. So I'm happy. I think the average speed of answer has gone down significantly, and I think 4 minutes is not a long time. I can be on the phone spectrum and be on there forever. So I don't think 4 minutes is a long time, but I have two questions. First, do you all track how long the calls are after the answer? Because I think that
Yes.
also impacts, okay,
Yes.
so I'm a data person, so I would just love to see how long it is. And then the other thing, call answered percentage. One of them was 79%. Is that because people are hanging up the calls? Why aren't all the calls?
It could
How
be,
is that
it
measured?
could be a myriad of reasons. Some of them, they start the call and they decide they don't want to wait for whatever reason. Some start during lunchtime and all of a sudden they have to go back to work, or some we've been told, I was calling. They're not supposed to be calling while they're driving, or they're calling in a vehicle and all of a sudden they get into a bad cell area and it drops. So it's
So
measuring
it's call
all
drop.
those. So that's all part of that, right?
Okay, call drop. Okay, but I think when you mentioned Paul Pass for December, I'm sure they were on the calls longer
Yes.
during that time for that. So I think that
Yes, it wasn't, it wasn't a reservation type call where, where are you
Right.
going? You need a return trip. It was, okay, open up the old app. You have to do this. And if you open up the new app, then here's what you do, and walking them through it.
So on average, how long is a person on agent on a call with someone on average?
Well, for the Paul Pass, it was anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes at times. So you do that a couple hundred times, and
Definitely makes a
next thing you know, your average just went skyrocketing.
So you're doing, I just want to give you all
Well, I appreciate
kudos, because I don't think
It's not me, it's
too
the
long.
team. It's the
Yeah,
teams that's
well,
doing it. So
please pass it along.
I
'cause
will
don't
do.
think-
Thank you. You don't want me on the phone that long, so. I go, thank you.
All right, and now we have community partner highlight, Florida Dialysis Center, Orlando. Betsy, I think you're gonna tell us about that.
Yeah,
I could, but.
Madam Chair, before she starts, I just wanted to say thank you to this board. This is a request that you all made, that you want to hear from the partners who are sitting around the table. And Betsy is first out of the gate, so thank you to her as well. And then she did ask if she could present from her seat. She doesn't have a formal presentation, but if that's okay with you all, she will present from where she is and just give you a highlight.
Sorry,
and-
go for it. Okay, I was going to just give a brief explanation of what dialysis is for those people who don't know. And then tell you kind of what it's like a day in the life of a dialysis patient who uses Access Links for transportation. So dialysis is a medical treatment for individuals with kidney failure. It helps to remove waste and excess fluids and toxins from the blood when the kidneys don't perform the way they should. For most people, kidneys filter out about 2 quarts of water every day and through urination, but for dialysis patients, often they are unable to urinate. So therefore, the fluids that they take in stay in until they come to a dialysis center and have an artificial kidney treatment. And I brought a dialyzer just so you could see what I'm talking about. If anybody wants to, this is an artificial kidney. And inside of it are hollow fibers, just like in your kidney. And the blood comes from the person through a tube, an arterial tube. It could be in your arm, in your leg, or in your chest wall. And it goes through this end of the dialyzer. That's the blood from your body, and it goes at a really fast flow. And it progresses through, these are hollow fibers, so it progresses through those. And on the outside of the dialyzer, there's a jug of fluid called dialysate, and it's like the fluid in your abdomen. It's like your peritoneal fluid in your abdomen. And it flows over these hollow fibers, and through osmosis, it removes the impurities from your system and the extra fluid. And then it goes back out and washes down the drain, and your clean blood comes through the other end of the dialyzer and goes back into your body. So that process takes about 3.5 to 4 hours for all the blood in your body to be cleaned through this dialyzer. During that time, some people, depending on all their other illnesses and so forth, can just sit through it and read a book or use their laptop or whatever they want to do, but the majority of people on dialysis, when they're going through that process, it's draining, it puts a strain on your heart. Sometimes it drops the blood pressure and causes them to feel nauseous. It's really, it's not an easy thing. So, and they have to sit in one position for 4 hours and it's difficult. So through that, so on the way to a dialysis treatment in the morning, a patient gets picked up at their home, door-to-door service, which is awesome. But they need to have everything ready and be outside waiting for the van, and it comes, they have a window during which they can come. So it may be 4 or 5 in the morning and they need to be on the lookout waiting for the van to come. And when it gets there, they, of course, it's a shared ride, so they ride on the van, stop regularly. All of this may take average an hour for them to get to dialysis. So they get there, they check in, they check their weight, they get all their vitals checked, and then they have their treatment. And 4 hours later, when they get off, they check out, they're weighed to make sure all the fluid got off, and they go to the waiting room and again wait for the Lynx van to pick them up. It could be, Lynx has a window, an hour window, but often, you know, they're better than that most of the time. They're coming within 30 minutes of the pickup time. But then it's a shared ride on the way home also. So these people, and most of them are elderly, over 65 patients, and they're riding around for a while again, and then they get home exhausted and drained, and you know, the next day they feel a little bit better, but then they have to prepare to go through the same thing all over again, 3 times a week. So it's difficult, and we, you know, we appreciate that Lynx is very receptive to their needs. And I have been working with Lynx for a very long time. And I just wanted to say one thing that used to be so good for us is when they had dedicated drivers. Now, I know that it's not, you can't pick out a certain group like dialysis patients and say, we're going to give them special treatment. But somehow there was an arrangement, and the same drivers picked up the same patients for the most part all the time. And they knew the patients well. They knew when they were in the hospital. They knew when they weren't coming. And it was so efficient because they didn't needlessly go to their houses when they were in the hospital and so forth. And I'm just going to throw that out there. It's been 20 years since we had that system, but it worked really, really well for Lynx, for the patients, and all the way around. It was a good thing. I don't know if it's feasible to find a way to do that that's not singling out this group of people, but just in case, I'm going to say that. So.
Questions?
Mhm.
I know I just learned some new information. That was great. I mean, I think we've all heard of dialysis, but if you don't know somebody who's gone through it, you don't realize what it takes to do that. So thank you for that. That was very, very informative. We appreciate it. Any questions from anyone? Thank you. Okay, we have 7 general information items and they're all behind tabs. And Virginia, did you need to point any of them specifically?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Norm actually called attention to item F, which is the adverse incident model procedures for Access Links. This is something new that they're having to do now as a result of last year's legislative session. And then also the reports that are presented, were presented to the Senate, were also in response to actions that were taken by the legislature last year. So those are the only 2 that I wanted to call your attention to. Your agendas are much larger than they normally would be, but that was because we're providing that information to you to share the outcome.
Thank you. All right, upcoming meetings of interest, Metro Plan Orlando Board, March 12th at 9 o'clock. Quality Assurance Task Force, April 29th at 10. And Transportation Disadvantaged is May 15th at 10. Are there any final comments from our members?
Virginia, can I ask a question? We are having that metro plan meeting in April. Should we announce that for people to, I think it'd be great to have anybody from this board come and voice us as they're putting together the future of Metro Plan's agenda.
We absolutely can. What Commissioner Uribe is speaking of is that Metro Plan Orlando is in the midst of developing our 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And we will be hosting a joint meeting of all the Metro Plan Orlando Board and its advisory committees on April 9th. This board, you're absolutely invited to attend, and we can get it on your calendar. But because of the fact that you're advisory to the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged, more so, we had not added you, but we're happy to do so and would be grateful for your participation. The board definitely would benefit from hearing from you, from your relationships with their constituents who are affected by these, the shortage of funds and so on and so forth. So absolutely, we will get that on your calendars.
Thank you. All right, we've now reached the second opportunity for public comments. Comments heard at this point in the meeting are more general in nature. Similar to the first public comment period, comments may be made in person or online by those joining us via Zoom. Members of the public joining us virtually who wish to speak may use the raise hand feature on the Zoom screen. If attending by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. When you're called, staff will unmute your microphone and will ask you to state your name and contact information for the record. Ms. Lisa, is there anyone online wishing to comment on any action item?
I do not see any hands raised on the virtual side.
Thank you. And is there anyone from the public wishing to speak in person?
Have not received any requests.
And were there any comments submitted by email or phone, Virginia?
We didn't receive any, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Well, then again, our next meeting is May 15th, 2025 at 10 a.m. at Metro Plan Orlando. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor
Thank you.
Espinosa for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good week. Wonderful. Yeah.